Welcome to Model Sounds Effects. If anybody has any specific requests, please let us know via chat so Peter can cover those too. Welcome, Peter, and thank you for joining us. And over to you.
Thank you very much, Richard. So this thing about sound effects has come about for two reasons. Those of you know that I'm involved with the SR 7mm group and Jeff Langham, and what he did was he asked a friend of ours to do something with these. So what this is a shunting gong. This is how it started. He asked a friend of ours to do these shunting gongs. Well, it's not much good having a shunting gong if it doesn't make a gong sound. So what he did was he described what he wanted, and our friend Bob Gilmore, basically, he found these MP3 players on the internet on Amazon, and they are very small, very, very inexpensive, but they have a bit of a limitation in that all the buttons to make them do something are actually on the board. So if you want to conceal it, it's not very easy to conceal. And so with that in mind, I also looked through what was available, and I found another board, which is also an MP3 player, but it has an extra capability in that it can play WAV files. Now, what I've done to illustrate this, if I can share my screen, I've done a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation. Those of you who keep in touch with what I actually do, you can see I work for Network Rail. I am something called a professional development specialist. It sounds very grand. I'm in theory a manager, and what I do is I manage the competence of all the Sussex and Kent signallers who are based at Three Bridges and in the environment around them. So there's about 400 to 500 of them, would you believe? Now, on top of what Jeff wanted, as part of my role for doing this, we have to assess signalers on something called non-technical skills. And non-technical skills are things like managing your workload, dealing with other people and things like that. Network Rail there's 8 of them, and Network Rail have specific names for them. And while I was doing the last lot of non-technical skills, which was controlled under pressure, I wrote a presentation for it, which consisted of basically making them as confused as possible. So I found all these websites that you can get sound effects of, and that's what I did. The presentation is 3 minutes long. They had to build something out of Lego, which I constantly changed what they had to do, but they had to record what they hear and record what they see. And there were 10 of those things as well. So they have to chop and change all the, but anyway, that's what we do amongst other things. So with that in mind, if you just bear with me a second, I will share my screen. Oh, Richard, can you turn sharing on for me, please?
Okay.
Let's try it again. Right. Okay. Right, so this is the presentation I've done. It is a slideshow. I use PowerPoint for work. This is LibreOffice, which is sort of like a free thing. So can you hear that? Can you all hear that? Yeah, you can all hear that. Well, this is a little corner of Bexhill Estate, Bexhill Harbour. You can see I'm the local estate agent, and well, I picked these sounds to just illustrate the kind of thing that you can do. So adding some ambience to your roundway. So sounds. These are some of the websites that I picked up. BBC have absolutely wonderfully put all their sound effect library free on the internet. There are 33,000 sounds that you can go to this website and pick up. And the website is extremely good. I actually only discovered it the other day, and that's where the seagulls came from this website. And they provide you, they even give you access to their own online sound mixer. These are all other ones that you can go, which they're all free. Some of them you have to sign up, some of them you can just get. Or you can just go to Google and search for free sound effects. So normally sound effects come in a couple of formats. So you have MP3s. You've probably heard of MP3 players for music purposes. The thing about them is, yeah, they're small file sizes, so they're like 1 MB or more or less for a simple sound effect. But they are compressed, and what they do is, because they're a small file size, they take advantage of auditory masking. So what you're hearing is between 75 and 95% of the original sound, not the whole thing. It's not the whole thing. What it does, it's a bit like perception. You can't actually hear everything when you're listening to things. You can't hear everything. So what they do is they cut out certain things. Now, I won't bore you with how they do this. If you want to, just Google MP3 audio format and you'll be taken to a huge technical thing on Wikipedia, which describes how it works. What I prefer to use is WAVs, and WAVs are the file types that are used for normally used for video comedies, although there are other file formats now. They are a large format in terms of those sound effects that were included with the first picture. They're like 22 MB, so they're quite a lot bigger than an MP3. They are lossless and they're not normally compressed, but there is a limit in the size. Now, a 4 GB sound file would be hours long, or it would be an hour long. But what you can do is you can, if with your audio editing software, you can adjust how big the file is, but it can't exceed 4 GB, because that's the limit with 32 data bits, which is why a lot of computers nowadays have 64, because you can have bigger memory and everything else like that. But that's getting too technical again. Which one sounds the best? Yeah, it's a matter of opinion, really, which one sounds the best. I think that WAVs sound the best, but it's, again, all in the perception. You might not. You might think that MP3s are perfectly acceptable. If you want something that's got a bit of a better sound, go for a WAV. Now, you need to make a decision. What sounds you want, how loud they're going to be, and how they're going to be presented. Multiple sounds or a single specific one. You can mix a number together, or you can have just one thing for a sound effect. But we were having a bit of a discussion about this morning, and I think it was, yeah, it was Dave Smith said he went to an exhibition a number of years ago in France, and where the layout next to where he was sitting had sound effects, but it was on tape. And once they pressed the start, the tape went on, and then at the end they stopped it, rewind it, and set it off again. The problem with it is if it is overdone, it will become annoying. Simple as that. What you want it to do is to limit it to a certain few things. And now in today's day and age with computer um, control and everything, it is not difficult to do this, but I will show you in a minute. Yeah, continuous or triggered by an event. Triggered by an event would be my choice, but it's what you're going to use it for. Where you're going to put it for maximum effect, obviously you don't want it everywhere. You want it with a cameo or something like that to play occasionally just to give it a little bit of extra depth. At what volume for minimum annoyance? Well, yeah, that will be something that you might have a go at guessing, but it's probably better to get a second opinion of what constitutes annoying. Well, how are you going to prepare the sounds? I use Audio Director from Cyberlink Director Suite 365 because it comes with the video editing software that I use for doing all the guild events, and you can do some excellent things with it, which I will, if I've got time, I will show you the kind of thing that you can do. What I did with the gong for Jeffs, I wasn't happy with the sound file that was produced originally for this. So what I did in the end is I took the sound of a church bell, which you know is boing, it goes on forever. I took that and I put it in the Audio Link software, and the kind of thing, Audio Direct software, and what I can do with it is I can change the pitch of the sound, so I can move it musically in terms of, you can move it by semitones up or down, so you can make it deeper. It doesn't matter what the note the bell is playing from start on, you can alter it. The other thing that you can do with it is you can alter the rate of decay of the sound. So a bell resonates and goes on for however long it does until it gets struck again. But what you can do with the software is that you can change the decay rate. So you can make it drop off quicker so it sounds more like a gong. And I will play the two sounds if I get a chance later to show you the difference between the two. But there are other audio mixing software. The one that I've included there, MyEdit, is a subset of Cyberlink. But the BBC Effects website that I mentioned earlier includes a free mixer. So you can take the sounds off their page and mix them together, and it will create a whole file for you. Or you can just use the file as they are presented. If you don't want to go through that, if you think it's satisfactory, you can use them as they are, or you can make your own. Windows has a perfectly good microphone app where you can record things like station announcements. If you wanted to have station announcements, you could make your own station announcements, and you could put all the reverb and everything on with what Windows allows you to do. So there is quite a bit of scope there for you for doing things. You don't have to spend a lot of money to do it. The Power Director 365 suite costs me about 80 quid a year, but I get all the updates and you get free stuff and everything with it. Or you could just simply search online for free audio editing software if you want to go that way. How are you going to play it? This is what I use, this little board. I will show you when I'm not sharing how big this is, but it is what is the board here. It is about 1.5 inches all the way around. It's not very big, and it is multi-mode. So you see the red 3-position DIP switch there. How that is set dictates how the board operates. But the thing about this one is different from the less expensive ones in that you can play WAV files on it. You can see from the specification, it's got its own 20-watt amplifier. That's 20 watts into 4 ohms, which is quite a powerful amplifier, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Sampling rate, 48 kilohertz is the highest sampling rate for a WAV file. So it will do everything from the bottom end to the top end. And it's got a very, very wide working voltage. Most people use 12 volts on their railways, easily accommodated in it. And it doesn't come with any instructions, but the instructions, and there's about 7 pages of instructions, are available in the link at the bottom. So what else do you need? You need a power source, which I've already discussed, 12 volts. You need a suitable loudspeaker, but be careful of the output rating. I said 20 watts, that's 20 watts into 4 ohms. It's capable of 10 watts into 8 ohms, it's quite powerful. But if you want to play it at maximum volume, you will need something substantial. But if you only want to have it as a background and you're not going to turn the volume up, if I go back I can't go back a page, but on the board, and I'll show you in a minute, the volume control is preset. So it's that little, I'll show you, it's a little yellow preset pot. If you only turn that up a little bit so you can barely hear it, you will never drive a speaker at the maximum rating. You'll need a 32 gigabyte SD card because that is the maximum size that it will allow. And the way that I'm using it, I can play up to 8 sounds. So they can be, what's 32 divided by 8? They can be 4 gigabytes each, which is huge. It's the maximum amount. But the gong sound is about 30 kilobytes. It's not a huge amount. A suitable micro USB lead, because the other thing that you can do with it, you don't have to faff around putting the files onto an SD card. You can plug it into your computer using USB and transfer the files via a cable. So a suitable micro USB makes life easier, and a suitable means to trigger the sound or sounds. So like I said, the way that I'm using it, you can have up to 8 individual sounds, but I'm only using 1 at the moment. Installation, well, like I mentioned, you've got to think carefully about where it's going to be, but it's a speaker and the speakers are vulnerable. So you're going to have, yeah, it needs to be relatively near where you're doing it. But if you have more than 1 different sound from the same board, it may pose location issues because you can only have 1 speaker off it. So yeah, you might need multiple boards, but they're not expensive. And choose a location where the boards and speakers aren't likely to suffer inadvertent physical damage, because the speakers are going to be vulnerable. The ones at Jeff, I mount upside down. I'll show you what that means in a minute when you can see it. So summary, adding sound effects can enhance your railway, but They might not be everyone's cup of tea, and they're not everyone's cup of tea. This came about for a specific thing, and well, I can see good things for it and extra things, but you don't want to overdo it because it can be overpowering and annoying if it's overdone. If it's done carefully, it can provide a subtle, pleasing effect, and it can do. It can provide a good talking point and a good accompaniment. So there's the signalman walking to Causden A box to start his shift with the church bells in the background and various birds singing. That's pleasing. Church bells going on for hours might not be, and drive the Causden A driver and signaler up the wall. But if you had it set up so that it did it on a infrequent random basis, which is easy to do with those modules, and I'll show you how it it can be. It can be very good. You have sound fitted locomotives. Why not have a sound fitted railway? Anyway, that's the end of that. I will stop sharing and show you some more things. So that is the board. As you can see, this one is slightly modified from the one in the picture. What I've done is I've added the two blue connectors. One is for power and the other one is for the speaker. The SD card just pops into here. And then this one is set up. I don't know if you can see it. Sorry, I'll turn my lamp down a bit. There, I'll turn it off. Can you see the way that the dip switches are set? The dip switches are set with 1 and 2 on and 3 off. And what that means, these are the trigger points down the side. It doesn't come with those. You can just solder wires in, but I've put that on board it because what I use is I use some, if I can find them, I use these. Now, all I need to do, the bottom one is ground. So if I put the black one on that one.
Peter, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
We didn't get the sound with your picture of the signalman, I'm afraid.
You didn't?
No.
I'll play it separate in a minute.
Okay. Cheers.
So that's how I trigger the board. That's all you have to do. I buy these leads. You can get them from Amazon, which have got the connectors on them. It's on number 1, not number 0, because that is the file that that's because the file that I've got. Those instructions that I mentioned tell you how to name the files. They have to be named in a certain way, in a certain manner for them to work. But it's not very difficult. They're just files. You can just rename them whatever you want. And then to make it play, all you do is just connect the two things, and then it will play the sound. I'm tempted, I was tempted to set it up and play it for you, but I'm on the dining room table. I haven't got enough room. These are the boards that we had originally. So I try and, can you see, can you see the 4 switches? They're what you use to trigger it. And there was no means of doing it. What I wanted to do is I want a signal to go back to danger and the gong to sound when it does, but these you had to press the button. So I had to look for something different. Now, yeah. Sorry, excuse me a minute. This is hold on. There you go. Sorry, you got all Christina's stuff in the back. There is a difference in the size of the board slightly, but not over much. The only difference with this one is it's got a headphone socket, so you can use it as an MP3 player if you want. This one has also got a headphone socket, so you can use it as an MP3 player. That yellow thing is the volume control. You just operate it with a screwdriver, and that's all it is. It's not rocket science, really. Simple. Speakers, these are what we've been using at Jeff's. These are 3-watt speakers. Again, you can get these extremely inexpensively from Amazon. And I mount them this way up. So I use PCB standoffs under the layout and screw them up from underneath so that there's a little bit of room for them to sound to escape. They're enclosed, so they've got a bit of a bass reflex, and they are pretty good. But you can get inexpensively, again, speakers like this, which these are very powerful speakers. These are 10-watt. They're 10-watt speakers. They cost me like a £5 each. They're not hugely expensive, but they've not got an enclosure around them. So that is the kind of thing that you could use, but it's much of a muchness. You can just look around and see what you want if you want to go for it, and just acquire what you need. But you will need a speaker, and you will need an SD card. That was a £5. Don't need a super duper one. You could probably get it cheaper if you shopped around, but it's not expensive. That, the speaker, the SD card won't cost you £20. All it will cost you is time to make the sounds. Now, what I'll do now is I will hopefully you will hear this. If you just bear with me a second. Right. Can you hear that?
No.
You can.
No.
That's what you should have heard over the top of the picture of the signalman. So it's bells in the distance, birds singing in the foreground. And that wasn't very difficult to do. And you can make it as long as you want, and you can trigger it when you want. It's not a big thing. So just let me show you play the sounds of the gongs.
Didn't hear that sound, or some of us didn't hear that sound, Peter, again.
Didn't hear it. Okay.
No.
I'll try it again. I wonder if I can share it. I'll share my screen. Richard, I'm going to share my screen again. Right. So what I'm going to do now, this is the gong that we started off with, Jess. So what I've got is I started off with this, Did you hear that? Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I started off with that. And I ended up with this.
Sounds more like a gong to me.
Well, would you believe that is the same sound, just manipulated to sound like a gong? So I added silence to it. So you got the period. I added this, that, and the other. This is what it originally sounded like. So that was the original MP3 for the gong, but I think my one sounds better. All right, I am a bit biased, but I think my one sounds a bit better. If you excuse me a moment, I'll just go back to the sound for that video. Right. Okay. Some of you missed it, but this is the sound. You hear that?
No.
No.
No, you didn't hear that. It's
No, Peter.
blasting my eardrums here. Right. Well, I can't understand why you can't hear that, but you can hear the gong. Oh, never mind. Never mind. What's this one? Can you hear the seagulls?
Nope.
No.
No.
Nope.
Oh,
Sorry.
never mind. Never mind. So let me take it from me. They're there. They're there. They are there. Now, okay. So let me go. I'm back. So how do I get the sound? So I'm going to have to share again. Sorry. Where is it? I'll just share my screen. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Sorry. If you excuse me, I'm just going to have to start it from so you can see it, so it's there, if you see what I mean. I use this. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Peter.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
So this is the audio editing software that I use to do various things with videos and everything else like that, and with the presentations at work. And what if you can see down the bottom here, it says that the sounds that are on the screen, which are sort of just for testing, are MP3s. They're stereo because you've got two tracks and it tells you how big they are. Now, I will get rid of all these and I will open a recent project. Just bear with me again. Sorry about this. Should have been better prepared. Videos. Let's show my live session. Okay. So this is the stereo version of my sound that accompanies the signalman walking to the signal box. And you can see up here in this box, this has got all the sound components that make it up. The ones that have got stars behind it, in front of it, means that they've been modified. So they've been changed. So what you can do with this is you can, these are the sounds in stereo, but what you can do is you can mix it. So you get a mixer just by clicking on the mix. And if you can see at the top, little birds singing in the trees 3 times. And then this one is the bells. This one, 07040020 is the reference on the BBC. That's the file that came from the BBC website. And there's about 5 pages of church bells. So you pick whichever one that you want. Now, this toggle here, can you see this one that's LR? You see that one? What that does, if you enable it like this one, like track 2 of the bells, you can move where the bells appear in the stereo sound. I set them so that they're on one side, so they sound off in a certain distance rather than in the foreground. But if you notice, this one hasn't got it clicked, and the line in the middle, there's no green line. The line in the middle is the volume. The orange line is the volume. So the birds will sound all around, not off to one side. And yeah, you can adjust the volume. So they are +5 and you can play it back. So if I play it back, you probably won't be able to hear it. Can you hear it? No.
No, Peter.
No. All right, hold on. Can you hear it now?
No.
No.
No. Oh, I don't understand why you can't hear it. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you can't hear the sounds that are coming out my speakers.
No.
Bizarre. Bizarre. Anyway, as you can see, you can manipulate the files to give the effect that you want. I mean, you can put them off to one side, put them at different volumes so that they appear in the distance. You can do various things with this one. I could plug a microphone. You see that icon there, the microphone one? I can plug a microphone into my laptop and record live. You know, I could do my station announcement and then it would appear like this. That is the waveform for the countryside thing. And then what you do is you export it. And when you export it, when you're happy with it, it asks you where you want to put it, what you want to export it as, and you get a number of options. These are all the options. That board that I show you will only play WAV and MP3s. M4As are an Apple type thing, but they are getting more and more. It's an MP4. It's an MP4 version of an MP3. That's all you need to know. Don't worry about it. Read up on Google if you want to read about it, because there's M4A, B, C, D, etc., etc. And they all have different things. They're higher quality. There's FLAC, which is also another sound format, but You can't play those using those boards. All you can do is WAV or an MP3. And well, I've picked WAV. And then what it does is it asks you the sample rate. Well, you remember I said the maximum that it can do is 4800 hertz, 48 kilohertz. That's the maximum you can do with it. 16-bit stereo, and it will export it as that. If you can play it in stereo, you can play it in stereo, but the boards are only mono.
Peter, there's a question come through for you.
Yes.
Apparently, Zoom audio settings now have a background sign suppression output.
All right. Okay. Oh, background sounds. Where's that? Do I have to stop sharing to do that?
No, it's just somebody who's informing us in the chat column.
It's in the audio settings.
In the audio settings,
there's a background sound suppression.
Background.
Which is on mine, so I suspect that by default, it's not picking up your background sounds.
Audio settings.
Audio profile, yes. Zoom background noise removal recommended for most users.
Yeah, that's why we're not hearing your recordings, Peter.
Well, you can't hear it. Okay, we'll change it to medium and see if you can hear it now. You hear it now?
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Learn a new thing every day, as they say. Yeah, so you can hear the bells in the distance and you can hear the birds in the foreground. And that's an example of the kind of thing that you do. That whole segment is 25 seconds long. You can make it as long or as short as you want to. You could have a church with the bells triggered to go off at random for things like that. If you've got a wedding or something like that as a cameo, there are so many things that you can do with it. And it all came about because of what Jeff wanted, and because I've been doing things differently for work now. So don't neglect it. All I can say is that if you're happy with DCC sound on locomotives, why wouldn't you add sound for other things if you could? But it is easy to do and inexpensive.
Couple of comments, Peter. That's brilliant and sounds wonderful.
Well, thank you all very much, but it wasn't a huge amount of work to do. I mean, the hardest thing, the thing that took longest, was to actually find this board to do it. Something that you could trigger it externally, as opposed to this one, where the switches, to make this one work, you have to press the switches on the board. There is no breakout for it to go elsewhere, whereas this one there is. And now what happens at Jeff's, you may have seen the pictures of the weird shunting signal that we've got at Bexhill Yard, which used to exist in reality in Faversham Yard. It's a double arm upper quadrant semaphore, and what happens is that the signal's arms are off normally, so they're up at 45 degrees, but when you change certain points under the baseboard, the arms drop under the servo and under a servo control, and there is a spare pole on the relay that basically closes that. So as soon as that's done, you heard the gong sound, the gong goes off until the points are set the proper way and they go up again. And it's as simple as that, really.
Has anybody any questions for Peter?
Questions?
Peter, Alan Rhodes. I've got one because I've got the 9 pages of instructions in front of me. Having tried using the URL you gave, which is right, but for some reason it didn't, so I had to go searching for it.
All right.
The bit I haven't fully understood, which is me, not you, is if you take your church bells and there was something else, seagulls or whatever.
Yeah.
How was that triggered?
How is that triggered?
Yeah.
So do you want me to? I've got the instructions here. I can bring the instructions up and show you.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just bear with me.
Hope it's not too
No.
It's
It's not
small for everybody else.
It's not a problem. I mean, you probably want to see the instructions anyway. Just bear with me.
That's useful.
Yeah, there are 9 pages of them.
There are 9 pages of them. Quite correct. They're not in my presentation. They are in the SR Sendmail group folder. Not in that folder. They're in the Gong folder. Right. Sorry, I have to share again. Where is it? There they are. Alan, are these the instructions that you got?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is all just the basic parameters of the thing. So if you see down here, it supports IO trigger.
Yeah.
So if you notice, there are 8 pins on the edge of that board, and what you need to do is you need to set it up so that it will use IO triggering rather than the UART one. So if you go down here, these are where it says configuration pin, these are the settings that you want to set the dip switch to. Yeah.
Yes.
What have you got your one set to?
I haven't got one.
You haven't got one.
No, I'm working out whether I want one, you see.
Oh, right. Okay. So what you want to do, you see these two, which says IO independent mode 0 and independent mode 1.
Yeah.
You want to set it to either one of those 2 settings. Mine is set to independent mode 1, which is 0, 1, 1 on the board.
Yeah.
So that is the way it's setting. You see over here, it says IO 0, song 1, 1 is 2, 3, up to 8.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I go down a bit further, it describes so I said my
yes.
You see, my one plays, I said that it was connected to IO1, the trigger. So what you do is the bottom pin, the one nearest to the edge of the board, is ground.
Yeah.
And then the other 8 start off, the next one is 7, etc., up to 0. So with my one, I play when IO1 is triggered. So it's here, this one.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yes.
And the file has to be called this 0,
right.
0. But
Yeah.
you can call it .wav if you use WAV files. And that way, if you could see into my SD card, you would see that it's got one file on it, which is named 00 002, and that gets played by me grounding the second pin down from the top. So connecting the second pin down from the top to the bottom one. That's what the two wires did, but you can have up to 8 with a common ground, but the files must be called this, if you see what I mean.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Now, and the other thing that you can do is that if you wanted to, if you really wanted to, it's inverse binary. You could play that method using up to 255 files. So the way that I do it, it just goes down in the binary sequence. So 0, that bit, then that bit, then the 2 together, that plays number 3, then the 4th bit, etc., etc. If you ground all of the pins, it will play file number 00255.
Yeah.
So you can have up to 256 if you want to go to that faff, but you would probably need a computer to control that, to get the binary. Don't worry too much about all the other things there for all like UARTs, but if you look here, can you see that drawing?
Yes, I'm on that drawing.
Yeah, that's the drawing that you need to, which lays everything out.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Yeah, that's all right. My pleasure.
That means I can now go and order one because I understand it better. Thank you.
Well, that's excellent to have been of assistance. But yeah, although I work for Network Rail, my background is in electronics and computing. So
mine's not.
Yours is not. A lot of people is not. But yeah. But yeah, that's how I use them. And they're a little bit the boards are a little bit daunting because they're so multifunction. But when you drill down into it, they are really quite simple. You know, they work in different ways, but all you're really interested in are these independent modes.
Can I ask one follow-up question, which is going to show my ignorance completely?
No, there's no such thing as a bad question.
You had a lead. Did it plug in, or was it soldered into these IO1 the connections?
Right. So what I buy again from Amazon. You can buy these kits, these sets of jumper leads. Now they come with a socket on one end and a plug on the other end, or they normally come as a set of, I don't know how many you get, 30 odd in the thing. I've got loads upstairs. But these particular ones, they've got a socket on this end and a plug on this end. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get them with sockets on both ends and plugs on both ends, and you get this big set with them. What I did is the boards come with, if you see that.
No, right.
They come without that.
Ah, that's what I thought.
I soldered them on to make putting these on so much easier.
Yeah.
And the same with these. They don't come with these. You can just solder the wires in, but get them the right way round. Certainly with the power one.
No, thank you. I wondered what those things were sticking up looking at this diagram, but now I understand.
I have loads of these at home because I make Merg kits and I'm always breaking them. They do break because you often have to cut them up into certain lengths, and the plastic that constitutes the black bit at the bottom be brittle. And instead of having a 3 and a 4, you end up with multiple ones and half of a bit hanging off and everything. So again, I buy packets of those. So all they are is just 2.54 millimeter termination strips. You just buy them. You get a great big box of about, I don't know, 500 or so in strips of 25.
Yeah.
But you don't have to use them. I just use it for convenience, that's all.
Peter, another
Thank you.
point has been raised by Roy Harris.
Yes.
Just for interest, I saw a system which used MP3 player to set a play background tracks in a random order. Several of the tracks were blanks of various lengths, up to 5 minutes. The result was background sounds played randomly.
Yeah, you can do that with these boards without too much of a problem, but you will need some form of computer control to do that. In effect, these pins, which depending on the way that the mode is set on the board, the way that I'm using it is independent. So you connect each one to ground and that plays the file number that you've got. But what you can do, you can use this in another way. Read the data sheet, it's got all the information on it, and you can easily do that with that, but you would need some form of computer control, like, I don't know, an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi or something else like that.
Right.
You could do.
Peter, I'm going to have to stop you there.
Yep.
Thank you very much. I think we've all enjoyed it immensely.
Thank you all very
There'll be
much.
a few more layouts round us about with extra sounds.
Well, when I next record, Jeff, so I'll make sure that I record the sound of it actually working. I should have gone over and installed it weeks ago, but I've been working so hard at work with the day job that I haven't been able to get over there since before Christmas.
Right.
So hopefully I will record it when I've
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you everybody for attending.
Thank you everyone.
I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.